evening, every pony and every listener out there. You're listening to FanFiction Fridays on Oatstralia On Air Live. I'm Golden Microphone, your gracious host for the week. And my stars, what a week it has been. Still a few weeks after PonyCon, and some people still can't believe that it is the mega success that it was. And from it, we've got ourselves quite a few new pieces of, well, let's say, a few new amazing people who are part of the audience tonight. Well, not just the audience, but a part of the Bronies of New South Wales, Bronies Australia, Aussie Bronies, Queensland Bronies, Canberra Bronies, you name it, new members everywhere. I would say that it was quite the success. Thank you very much everyone for coming along and having yourselves a blast. I know I did. I had an amazing time. I got to meet such amazing people as Graphite Sketch. Got to meet Eve Dog for the first time, which the guy's brilliant. I met Oliver Lakota, such a great pianist. Love that guy. Ah, stars, just stars everywhere, stars in my eyes. What a fantastic day. I even met a scale suitor. You know, the dragon that was on stage for the cosplay competition. Well, if you guys were there. But that was really cool, like an OC dragon. I'd never thought of that. Then again, in this fandom, we've got a lot of unique things. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Koroshi-Ya is the only zebra OC out there. Korw is the only Periton OC, which, by the way, is exactly what it is, a Periton. If you don't know what that is, I'll see if I can figure that one out. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sit down, turn the music down just a little bit, and we'll get right on started, get ourselves ready for a brand new episode of My Little Avenger. It'll be chapter 11, so you'll have to give me just a moment. Something's wrong here. The beauty of live radio. Don't you just love it? Something's... Oh, I see what's wrong. Okay, yep. Right, I fixed that. That's fine. Here we are then. I will post it into the chat now, and for you following at home on YouTube, what is going on? There we go. For those of you following along on YouTube, it'll be in the description below. Ah, there we go. Pop. Alrighty then. Here we go. If you'll follow along, that'll be splendid. If you don't want to follow along and just listen, that's fine as well. This is Chapter 11 of My Little Avenger. And... all done! Rarity proclaimed, stepping back. Spitfire breathed a sigh of relief as she was released from the unicorn's ministrations. She appreciated Rarity's work, but that didn't make standing still for hours any easier. What do you think, darling? Spitfire hopped down from the pedestal in the center of Rarity's new workshop. Blue Blood had it set up for her in Avengers Mansion, as their headquarters was now known, when Rarity had made it clear that she would not allow Equestria's nearest team of super ponies save the world without proper attire. Spitfire winged her way to the full-body mirror and examined herself. She was wearing a brand new bodysuit, colored in shades of orange and red to match her fiery mane. Ha! It was actually pretty similar to her Wonderbolt's flight suit, aside from the color, but this left her head uncovered and her mane free. Her fire seemed to emit mostly from her mane, so leaving it free gave her unrestricted access to her powers. I love it, Spitfire said with a grin, turning this way and that in mid-air to admire herself. It's a lot more comfortable than my Wonderbolt suit. What's it made of? To be honest, I'm not entirely certain, Rarity admitted, trotting up to stand next to Spitfire. Blue Blood invented it. Something about unstable molecular structure? Oh, something like that I can never follow when he goes into his genius mode. It's such a wonderful fabric, regardless, don't you think? It's so light and flexible. It breathes so much better than latex, keeps you warm in the cold and cool in the heat, doesn't tear easily. And of course, it's able to withstand the intense temperature of your powers, dear. Ah. Rarity gave a bit of a dreamy sigh. Blue certainly manages to work miracles sometimes, when he manages to focus long enough to finish a project. It is pretty nice, Spitfire agreed, before giving Rarity a knowing grin. You sound especially impressed, though I have a feeling it's less with the fabric and more with its inventor. Rarity sighed. Oh dear. Is it that obvious? Afraid so. Spitfire chuckled. You know, Blue has a pretty bad rep from what I heard, but he's pretty good colt, all things considered. Handsome, rich, brilliant, polite, so long as you smack him upside the head every so often. You could do worse. Oh, I suppose I could, Rarity said wistfully. Still, the last time I pursued him it ended in disaster. I suppose I'm a bit nervous about trying again. Oh, you dated before? Spitfire asked curiously. I didn't know you guys knew each other before the Avengers. Ah, not exactly. It's a long and embarrassing story, Rarity said, her face coloring slightly. Another time, perhaps. She shot Spitfire a sly glance. What about you, dear? Any colt catch your eye recently? Perhaps a certain military stallion? Spitfire grinned at Rarity. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. She glanced up at the clock on a nearby wall. Ah! Horse feathers. I'm late. Big Mac finally got a break from whatever it is the princess has him busy doing, and we're going to go out for donuts. Oh? Rarity had a very interested expression. Big Macintosh? He's quite a comely stallion himself, you know. Spitfire gave Rarity a friendly shove. Ah, stow it, will you? I've been trying to talk to Big Mac since we came to this mansion a week ago. I just got some things I need to say to him, that's all. Whatever you say, darling, Rarity sing-songed as she went back to her work table. I need to get back to work on Caramel's outfit. I'll be sure not to tell him where you've gone. Oh, cut it out, Rare. Big Mac! Spitfire called as she flew across the rebuilt Pony Joe's. The large Earth pony looked up and smiled, waving the Pegasus over. Oh, howdy, Fire, Big Mac said, gesturing for her to take a seat. Good to see y'all again. It's good to see you too, Spitfire said, giving the larger pony a brief hug before sitting down and waving to Joe to bring over some donuts. The friendly yellow unicorn had fully recovered from his store's destruction over a month ago, and immediately brought over Spitfire's favorite chocolate-glazed donuts. Where have you been all week? I've been trying to talk to you since we got here. Big Mac fidgeted a bit. Oh, well, you know, Princess keeps me real busy. There's a mighty lot of behind-the-scenes work to do for the Avengers. All technically true. Big Mac had been taking lessons from Pinky. But I finally got the day off. It's good to see y'all doing better. Spitfire nodded, her smile drooping a bit as she stared at her donut. That's why I wanted to talk to you, actually. The last time we talked, after Soren's incident, I was a mess. I didn't know what to do with myself. I don't know if I'd have ever forgiven myself for that. I'm still not sure I ever will. But I can live with it now, thanks to you. She looked up and smiled. You talked me out of my funk. You got me on the Avengers, which I think I really needed. And the princess tells me it was you who convinced Blue Blood to pay for Soren's treatment. Big Mac rubbed the back of his neck. I just suggested it, really. Rarity did most of the real convincing. Still, I just wanted to thank you, Spitfire said, leaning over the table to give Big Mac another hug. He hugged her back. I really appreciate it, and the Avengers is one of the best things to happen to me. I don't think I could have stood a chance. Sorry, I don't think I could have stood being around the other Wonderbolts without Soren. But if I just did nothing, I'd go crazy. This is just what I needed. So y'all are enjoying it? Big Mac said with a smile. How's the team? Y'all getting along? Oh, definitely, Spitfire said with a broad smile. You know Caramel, right? He said you used to work on a farm together. Yep. Good colt. Definitely, Spitfire agreed. He's a sweetheart. He really is. You don't meet many colts like him these days. She had a strangely happy look on her face. Big Mac grinned. Y'all just be gentle with him, all right? Big Mac cautioned, though he continued to grin. He's like my little brother. Don't you hurt him now, you got that? I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Spitfire said with a smirk, as she did to Rarity. Then she relented and added, but I promise, you don't need to worry. Good, Big Mac said with a nod. Well, what about Blue Blood? I heard some pretty nasty stuff about that one. Yeah, so did I, Spitfire shrugged. Either it's just gossip or he's changed, because he's not that bad. Oh, he's still an insufferably pompous flankhole with more money than he can ever spend, more intelligence than he knows what to do with, and more ego than the other two combined. But he's actually pretty alright once you get used to him. You just need to smack some manners back into him every so often, that's all. Big Mac chuckled. Well, considering Rarity's still hanging with him after what he did to her at the gala, he must be pretty charming. The gala? Spitfire questioned. You mean that disaster last year? Rarity was there? Ah, yeah. It ain't my story to tell, though. I wasn't even there. Big Mac shrugged. Y'all should ask Rarity about it. Maybe I will, Spitfire said, more curious than ever. Anyway, what about your new leader? Thor, right? What's he like? Big Mac couldn't resist. This was a unique opportunity to get an honest appraisal of what another pony thought of him. Thor? He's all right, I guess, Spitfire said with a shrug. He's certainly impressive in person. Really big. Even bigger than the princesses. And he's really inspiring, like the princesses are. Just talking to him makes you want to go out and save Equestria. But, but what? Big Mac pressed. Well, he's kinda distant, Spitfire said finally. It's like he's some kind of natural force. Like a storm, really. Big and powerful, but really far away. She shrugged. I don't know whenever he talks, it just feels like a speech. We've talked at least a dozen times, but I already feel like I know you better. And we've only talked twice. Distant. Big Mac wondered at that. He never even considered trying to make friends as Thor. Thor was a leader, a role Big Mac played, not an actual pony. Just a mask he wore. Maybe he should take that mask off sometime. He and Spitfire continued to talk for the better part of an hour, munching on almost a box's worth of donuts. Apple cinnamon for Big Mac, chocolate glaze for Spitfire. Finally, Spitfire glanced up at a clock and said she had to leave. We're having our first training session today, she explained, though Big Mac already knew that. Blue's been setting up some sort of gizmo ready to help us train, and it's finally ready. I better go meet the others. She gave Big Mac one last hug. I'll see you around, Mac. She flew from the shop in a blur. Big Mac just grinned, pulling Mjolnir from his saddlebags as he trotted out of the store. At his godly speed, he'd be there in plenty of time to make it seem like he'd been there the whole time. Welcome to the danger field, Blue Blood, or rather, Iron Pony, as he was wearing his armor, said grandly as the rest of the team entered the room. Room was something of a misnomer. Uh, I actually don't know how to pronounce that one. There we go. Something to learn. The enormous chamber was buried deep under Blue Blood Manor, and it was easily twice as large as the grand dance hall in Canterlot Castle. It was spectacularly unimpressive, aside from its size, however. A concrete floor, brick walls, and ceiling, and a single large window into an adjacent room set high on one wall. Doesn't look too dangerous, Firebird quipped. She was wearing the new uniform Rarity had prepared for her, and her mane was burning gently. She felt the fire was just as much a part of the Firebird identity as the outfit, and so she resolved to keep her mane alight while in costume. It looks pretty boring, actually. It's big enough for some combat training, I guess, Captain Equestria noted. Rarity had done a nice job with his outfit, a bodysuit of the gentle blues and the yellows of the equestrian flag. It matched his shield and beret rather well, both of which he carried with him, and it had the sun and moon emblem of Equestria on the flank, where the cutie mark normally went. It looked really good on him, Firebird thought privately. But we'll need some equipment. No, we won't, Iron Pony said gleefully. This room is a special bunker designed to protect all of Canterlot's nobility. My ancestor who built this place was something of a paranoid, you see. The walls are thick enough to withstand the apocalypse itself, so we can use our powers without worrying about damaging anything. Especially you, Lord Thor. Thor nodded, privately wondering just how accurate that was. As for equipment, well, I installed some of my inventions into the walls and floors. I guarantee you won't need anything else. Thor's brow furrowed. What exactly did thou install, Blue Blood? I'm glad you asked. Iron Pony looked like a child in a candy store as he waved up to the window. By straining their eyes, every pony else could just barely see Rarity waving back. Lady Rarity is up in the control room there. She'll be controlling the Dangerfield's equipment. He raised his voice a bit, the armor's mask amplifying it so he could be easily heard from the control room. Rarity, dear, run program L23B, would you? There was a moment's pause, and suddenly every pony besides Iron Pony jumped as the room around them vanished. Suddenly, they were standing amidst what appeared to be the ruins of Canterlot Castle. Behold! Iron Pony exclaimed. My fully immersive holographic environment, or FIHE. It's practically impossible to tell the difference, isn't it? Quite impressive, Thor admitted, kicking a piece of rubble. He felt the impact against his hoof, and it went skittering across the ground. How did thou make the stones solid? They were not here before. Hard light holograms, Iron Pony said proudly. They look real, they even feel real, but they're little more than force fields covered by a hologram. I had to enchant nearly half my supply of gems to keep track of all the information and create the holograms, but I'm working on streamlining the process. I think it was worth it regardless, don't you? Well, as impressive as this is, Firebird said dryly, it seems more like a toy than a training device. How does this give us combat practice? Oh, ye of little faith, Iron Pony chuckled. Hard light holograms can do more than just make rocks. Rarity, run program E1, if you please. There was a shimmer in the air before them, and suddenly a pony very familiar to Thor popped into existence. Odin's blood, he whispered. Your machine can duplicate the Wrecker? The Wrecker, as well as several other enemies we've each defeated, Iron Pony confirmed. It can also do some generic enemies, as well as duplicate a large number of the mutants in the princess's files, which she generously lent to me. I also made up several foes of my own design, as did Rarity, Princess Luna, and Pinky. He shuddered briefly. As an aside, it is in every pony's best interest not to load any file with the prefix P. Every pony nodded in agreement. Good. Now then, this version of the Wrecker is actually about half again as strong as the real thing. Since Thor already demonstrated that he can fight the real one on his own, I thought he'd be a good foe for us to begin practice on. Thor nodded slowly. The Wrecker is powerful, but simple, uncomplicated. He was my first foe in this age. It is appropriate that he be the Avengers' first foe as well. Shall we begin? Firebird flared her mane, taking to the air. Ready when you are, boss. Captain Equestria readied his shield, digging his hooves into the ground. Just say the word. Very well, Iron Pony said, as Thor took up a ready position as well. Iron Pony readied his shields and emitter crystals, then called out, Rarity, begin the simulation! Watch those flames, you madmare! Stop jumping in my way, you spoiled foal! Oh, come on! I left that wide open for you, Cap! I can't read your mind, Firebird! Captain, now would be an opportune time! Sorry, Thor! It was about an hour later when the Avengers limped from the danger field, sore and disgruntled. There were several singe marks and dents on Iron Pony's armor, and every pony else had been knocked around rather brutally. Oh, I feel like I just spent the last hour boxing with a dragon, Captain Equestria groaned. What are you complaining about? Grumbled EileMonty. You spent all your time in the background. We did all the fighting. If by fighting you mean charging ahead like an idiot and getting in every pony's way, then yeah, Firebird quipped. Well, maybe I could have timed my attacks better if you had actually communicated with us, instead of just expecting us to know when you're ready for us. Enough! Every pony stopped arguing as Thor's deep voice reverberated throughout the hallway. We are all at fault, myself included. I am accustomed to working with ponies with an instinct for battle, which you three have not had time to develop. You do not yet know the basics of teamwork. He turned to Firebird. Firebird, for many years you led a group of ponies who you knew perfectly, and who knew you, and would follow your lead. You do not lead here, and we do not instinctively know what you plan as your fellows from the Wonderbolts might. You must communicate with us, and be willing to adapt your plans to the actions of others. Next he turned to the armored prince. Iron Pony, you are so eager to prove yourself, so focused on your own goals you disregard your fellows. You charge ahead, unheeding of the danger you cause to yourself and your allies. You must take care to note their actions, so you can better work as a member of a team. Finally, he turned to Caramel, who was looking sheepishly embarrassed. Captain Equestria, in many ways you are Blue Blood's opposite. You are too cautious, too patient. You wait and wait, too afraid of failure to take a risk. You cannot fear failure. When you see an opening, you must seize it. Thor looked at each of them in turn. We must learn to work together, to trust each other, and work as a unit. Do you all understand? Slowly, all three of his teammates nodded. Good, he said with a nod. Then I think one more round in the field is in order. The team groaned, their shoulders slumping. Ah! They all turned to re-enter the danger field. Suddenly, Firebird gave an alarmed yell and collapsed to the ground. In moments, Caramel was by her side, pulling the mask off his costume as he tried to help her up. Spitfire! Spitfire, are you okay? Are you hurt? Spitfire did not answer, save for a low, quiet moan. Her eyes had gone blank white, a strange mist obscuring her pupils. Thor put a hoof on Caramel's shoulder. Hold, Captain. Firebird is susceptible to receiving omens from the future. She may be receiving such a vision now. Caramel gave Thor a worried look before turning back to Spitfire. After a few tense seconds, Spitfire gave a sudden start, her eyes returning to normal as she tried to bolt upright. Her legs gave way, but Caramel caught her before she could collapse. Easy, easy. Are you all right? He asked, concern in his eyes. Yeah, I'm fine, Spitfire said, panting. I had a vision. She let Caramel help her to her hooves. What did you see? EileMonty asked curiously. Spitfire took a deep breath. I saw Manhattan. She turned to Thor. We have to go there. Now! Why? Thor asked urgently. What did you see? Spitfire shuddered, and Caramel held her tighter. Flames. I saw all of downtown Manhattan in ruins and flame. I don't know how. I don't know when, but I know it's going to happen soon unless we go and stop it right bucking now. And that there was Chapter 11 of My Little Avenger. Things are starting to heat up as the team learns all about teamwork against a powered-up Wrecker. Fantastic stuff. But, a vision of the future comes to Firebird. Manhattan is in flames. What will they do? Find out next time on My Little Avenger, Chapter 12, right here on FanFiction Fridays on Oatstralia on Air. With that, we'll go to a little break right at the moment with one of Koroshi-Ya's newest singles, 72. "72. 70, why isn't that working? That might explain things. 72 from Koroshi-Ya. On Australia on Air Live, this is FanFiction Fridays.
Yo, it's the B-boy Koroshi-Ya up in the house. We're writing this song about the greatest number in all of existence, baby. This is a song dedicated to the number 72. Hours in a 3-day cycle. ASTIIS hates to find decline. Finance is a rule 72. Equal temperament is a tune in use. Him by some C music and by some composers. Plot easy the number from start to home. Radio shortened it means best wishes. There were 72 disciples of Confucius. Yo, all of this fact and I just can't find why this number's done gone. Stuck itself in my mind, doubt it means anything. But who gives a shit? Let's rock it out and make this number a hit. I'm counting through numbers 7 and 2. Put them side by side and you get 72. Wait. Stop the track. Did I just write the entire fucking song about the number 72? Seriously? Oh, dear. You see, this is what happens on mental blocks. I start writing shit. Worse than my normal shit. 72?
And we're back with FanFiction Fridays on Oatstralia on Air Live. I am Golden Microphone, and that was Koroshi-Ya and his latest track, 72. Poor guy is going through a mental block, so yeah. Oh dear. Well, with that out of the way, we've got ourselves the next story coming right up. It's Octavia Takes the Bus. According to the fanfiction.net, this is chapter 10, but it really is Hospital Visits Part 2, so I suppose that's chapter 8, Part 2. I'm going to go ahead and post this into the chat. There we go. And yes, that is going to Facebook as well, so there we are. All right, and those of you reading along, go right ahead and do so. If not, well, that's cool too. For you listening on YouTube later on, the link is in the description below. This is Octavia Takes the Bus, Saturday, Hospital Visits, Part 2. That'll be $50. I beg your pardon? $50. Now you're going to pay me or what? The cellist reached into a cheap purse she found and scavenged for whatever loose bit she still had to her name to pay for her taxi ride to the Canterlot Medical Center. She pulled out the entire content of the purse, 2 $10 bits. That's all you got? I'm terribly sorry, sir, but I'm afraid it is. The rumpled stallion sighed, then set his eyes on the horrendously configured imitation bag. That's a nice bag you got there. Would really look good on my wife. How's about you give that and your money to me? Sure. Take it. The taxi driver snatched the purse away from the befuddled mare and sped off down the illuminated parking lot of the hospital. Dear Celestia, she muttered, staring at her now empty hoof. What a rip-off. Octavia walked into the hospital and stopped on the padded blue mat. A long, sweeping survey of the inside revealed a bombardment of sights toppling over each other for her attention, including a multicolored tile floor, equally decorated walls, a front desk surrounded by flyers of all sizes, and towering palm trees whose fronds nearly greeted every walking patron with a brush across the tree. The waiting hall was completely empty, save for a few cushioned chairs, accompanying tables, and monthly subscriptions scattered by ponies with more pressing matters to attend to. The bedazzled mare shook her head and made her way to the front desk. Hello, how may I help you? Asked a cheerful young unicorn wearing bright red glasses. Yes, I'd like to visit a friend this evening. Her name is Applebloom. Would you do me the favor of locating her room? One moment. The unicorn swiveled her chair to face a computer and began typing quickly. Oh, what was the name again? Applebloom. Okay, just give me a minute here. She mumbled as she searched for the name on the registry. Is she a relative or a friend of yours? Actually, she's the little sister of a friend. Oh, really? What happened? Well, Octavia began, apparently she was diagnosed with a stomach complication, a pelvic fracture impactation or something along those lines. Oh, you mean pelvic flexure impaction? She asked, touching the rim of her spectacles. Yes, that's it. So she had surgery and everything? Yes, ma'am. Oh, poor baby. The young mare ran a hoof over the bright screen that reflected off her lenses and stopped about midway. Aha! Apple Bloom. She is on the third floor, room 315. I see. Well, thank you very much. No problem. Say hi to Apple Bloom for me. Hope she gets better. The cellist turned to grin at the request before continuing her way to the elevators. After passing a quiet cafeteria and several yellow signs warning of a slippery floor, the mare turned a corner and found herself in a small pocket of the hospital where the elevators stood. She pressed a button and waited patiently for whichever elevator arrived first. She looked up at the analog clock on the wall, the only wall with no elevator on it, and read 9:30. I hope I'm not arriving at too late an hour, she whispered to herself. The cellist turned back to the elevator in front of her, when out of the corner of her eye she caught sight of a colt of about 9, with a mohawk-styled mane, sitting in a wheelchair in front of the elevator next to hers. He wore a cast on his right back leg, which was suspended by a mechanism particular to the wheelchair's model, but the mare made nothing of it. Hey, the colt said to the mare. She slowly turned to face him and raised her eyebrows inquisitively. Which one do you think's going to get here first? The cellist smiled. Honestly, I don't particularly care, so long as one gets here. I think it's going to be this one, he said, ignoring her comment and pointing a healthy hoof at the elevator in front of him. How do you know? She asked. Because this one always comes first. Any specific reason why, you think? It's because, he said, whenever I come here and push that button, this one always gets here first. The intrigued mare smirked at his response. That's interesting. You know, it could be different this time. Another elevator could arrive sooner. No, he said with a smile. I know this one will come first. Well, she said, grinning, I think mine will get here first. Nope, mine will. Really? Care to wager? The colt turned serious. You mean like a bet? You're a smart colt. My mom says betting is a sin. The cellist could hardly hide her laugh. Well, you have a very smart mother. She thought for a second. Tell you what, how about if your elevator wins, I buy you whatever you want from the cafeteria later? Okay! The little colt squirmed with excitement in his seat at the prospect of getting whatever he wanted from the poor, stupid mare. And if I win, she continued. What? He asked, looking up. You have to give me a kiss on the cheek. Gross! Are you a cradle rocker or something? The cellist let out another hearty laugh, which was cut off prematurely by the arrival of an elevator that, at her disadvantage, had opened in front of the young colt sitting in the wheelchair. I win! He squealed. You owe me whatever I want from the cafe. Octavia smiled. Okay, you win. The young colt turned a wheel in his chair and zoomed out into the white halls. Hey, she called out, you're going to miss the ride up. But you owe me something from the cafeteria, remember? He yelled back. I said later, you impatient patient. Oh, but I want it now. Please? The man looked back up at the clock and sighed. I suppose Apple Bloom can wait a few more minutes. All right, I'm on my way. Yay! He scooted away. Hey, wait for me. The elevator opened up to the third floor, and from within its glossy titanium walls came the cellist and her newfound friend, happily smacking his lips. I can't believe this time it was my elevator that got there first, she said audibly so the colt could hear. Why couldn't it have been that way before? The young colt giggled and took one last taste of his prized treat before disposing the remains in a waste bin. I take it you enjoyed that extra-large non-fat yogurt, hmm? All she heard in response was a very sticky, mm-hmm. Good, she chuckled. Well, I suppose this is goodbye. Crash, he said, filling in the blank. Oh, that's interesting, she said, biting her lower lip. That's okay. I know my name makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of a daredevil and I'm always getting hurt. Like this leg here? Scooter off 2 flights of stairs right into a wall. Snap! The mild-mannered mare shuddered at the sound of his clop proving his point. I wonder how your mother sleeps at night. In fact, he began with an air of pride, when I grow up, I'm going to be a stunt pony. That sounds lovely, I guess. What's love got to do with it? The cellist stifled a giggle over the obvious reference. Crash just frowned. Well, I gotta get back to my room. My mom's probably going crazy since I haven't been back for a couple hours now. As she should be, she exclaimed. What on earth is a young colt like you doing out and about on your own in a place like this? Oh, come on, it's not like we're in a dark alley or something. Besides, when you've been here as long as I have, you know where everything's at. You even know some things you never wanted to know. Really? She said, feigning interest. Like what? Well, he said, waving her in. You see that laundry room over there? Yeah. It's always locked, and a doctor and a nurse are always seen going in. Oh, that's strange, she said, no longer faking her curiosity. You know why, around here, it's known as the dirty sheets room? The mayor smirked. Isn't that where they wash used linen? Oh, well, duh. But you know how the sheets get dirty with a doctor and a nurse in there together? He asked, nudging her. The mayor in a bow tie took a second to think about her little friend's cryptic clues. Soon enough, like bread baking inside a sweltering oven, her face grew into a shocked smile. My word, she said, hitting the colt on the shoulder. How on earth do you know these things? Hey, word gets around here. And calm yourself. I think somebody needs to have their television taken away from their room at nights. Never, he said, grinning deviously. He grabbed the large wheels of his chair and started his way down the hall. Well, I gotta go. See you later, babe. All right, have a good night, Crash. The music pony walked in the opposite direction towards a small waiting room when a sudden realization stopped her once again. Did he just call me babe? She turned around to find a long hallway minus one pleasantly defiant colt in a wheelchair. Dear Celestia! She walked for what seemed like hours. Do these white walls ever stop? It's like I've died and gone to heaven. An excruciating moan from one of the open rooms halted her cautious steps for a moment. Or maybe hell. She continued walking until she reached the end of a long hallway. Two hallways stretched on either side of her, but the cellist kept her weary eyes peeled on the sign in front of her. Two arrows pointed the way, the left leading to rooms 500 to 549, the right up to 599. Let's see. What was the number again? 515? 550? 550. That sounds right. She turned right. The large pale door marked with the deep blue numerals appeared immediately to her right. The door was closed. She put a hoof on the knob and breathed in a long sigh. Okay, here we go. She opened the door and poked her head inside. The room was completely dark, save a single light coming from a lone lamp sitting crookedly behind the curtain that separated the two beds. The bed closest to the entrance was bare, and so was the entire room. Octavia stepped inside, careful not to create too much disturbance for a motionless figure that lay on a veiled bed. She stepped on something smooth and cylindrical, like a pen, and nearly lost her step. Oh, she squeaked. The shadow behind the curtain jerked its head to the unexpected visitor. Hey, who goes there? Huh? You heard me, said the patient rather brashly. Who are you and why are you here? Oh, I'm terribly sorry, replied Octavia, realizing the voice sounded nothing like a small filly with a stomach problem. I must be in the wrong room. I'll be on my way then. Hey! The mysterious voice straightened up and flung the curtain aside to address Octavia directly. Can you refill my water really quick? What? The musician looked up to find a familiar-looking mane of many colors rustle over a pair of fervent magenta eyes. No way. That's not... Oh, my bad, said Rainbow Dash, falling back into bed. I thought you were a nurse or something. No, I'm just visiting some pony. Octavia straightened her mane and looked at the injured Pegasus with interest. Rainbow Dash? Yeah? What's it to you? She replied, paying no attention to her and electing instead to read a book in her hooves. Well, don't you remember me? She didn't look up. Yeah, you're that one pony from the bus asking me all those weird questions. Oh, she said, feeling a little ashamed for the response. Well, what happened to you? Rainbow Dash closed her book and sighed. Ah, isn't it obvious? I had surgery on my wing. Does it hurt? No. She reopened her book. So, isn't there some pony else you need to bother with your stupid questions? Well, Door's behind you, sweetheart. The concerned mare felt a rush of embarrassment come over her. She thought about leaving. She even pictured it. But she also pictured another scenario. A different one. A bold one. I think I'll put her in her proper place. I don't know, she replied, a grin appearing on her face. If I can find another pony stupid enough to answer my questions. The Cyan pony put her book down and glared at the grey mare. What do you mean by that, egghead? Oh, come now, Rainbow Dash, she said, gaining confidence. You and I both know you love answering questions about yourself. You're probably in love with that pesky little rasp in your voice that annoys the hell out of just about every pony. Hey, she piped, her voice cracking. I've got fans all over the place just from my voice alone. Oh, of course you do. The bluffing cellist brushed her hoof on her bow tie and shot a proud look at the upset flyer. Am I selling it enough? How much you want to bet? Rainbow threw the covers off her body and stuck her flaming face into Octavia's cool countenance. We'll march right down the hall, and I'll have every cripple in this damn hospital crawling just to hear me talk. Oh, yes. Really? Then calling for help out of your inept flying accident shouldn't have taken so long, am I right? What? She had her. Please, Rainbow Dash. Your voice is like an ambulance siren. It causes ponies everywhere to stop reluctantly just so you can rush into another accident. But, in fact, they should just rip your head off and stick it on every single ambulance. No pony would miss that spectacle on the road. I mean, you already know what it's like to have something ripped from your body, no? Oh, was that too much? Who cares? It felt good. The cellist could not help a sly grin from emerging on her hot face. The flyer, meanwhile, let her flank fall on the mattress, and a look of utter shock extended from her crunched brow down to her wobbling chin. She didn't speak for several moments, of which the cellist was glad for, since the emotions that bubbled inside her was a mixture of pleasant relief and expectant nervousness. I cannot believe I'd pulled this off so easily. Oh, how will she react? Damn, Rainbow Dash finally said. That was harsh. A small smile emerged from the former wasteland that the initial shock left behind on her face. It was kinda awesome, too. The refined mare hid the urge to squeal behind a proud huff. I never pictured you as the trash-talking type, said Rainbow, now fully relaxed and putting up her front legs behind her head. I've been told I have a way with words. Yeah, but what you just said, I mean, the whole ambulance and rip off my head thing was beastly. Octavia polished an invisible apple. Well, I do have a competitive spirit flowing through my body. It's rather dormant most of the time, but it does rear its feisty head every once in a while. Competitive? You? At this, the athlete laughed and laughed nearly to the point of tears. She looked up to find a mildly upset mare with a hoof on her hip. Oh, come on. Don't take it that way. I mean, you're like a musician or something, right? Isn't everything you do all artsy-fartsy stuff? You would be surprised, Miss Rainbow Dash. The sudden turn to seriousness caught the laid-back flyer off guard. I wake up every morning at 5. 1 hour of scales, 1 minute of breakfast, another 2 hours of scales. If I'm feeling generous, I'll throw in a minute break or two. Then it's off to the bus stop to practice with the boys from the group for 6 hours. Come home, Another round of scales until I play myself to sleep. Rainbow didn't say a word. Dinner is optional. Jeez. Do you ever go to the bathroom? Didn't I mention I take a minute break? Do you do anything else with your life? Like have a hobby or take naps? Why bother? Are you ever satisfied with a day's work? Nothing satisfies a musician, she responded, walking towards the window. Not even their own work. At least, the ones that are worth their salt will find something to improve on. It's very easy to be content with mediocrity in the world of music. Just turn on your radio, and you'll find it in almost every single production that filters through the speakers. So you're saying they're not trying hard enough? No, I'm saying they aren't good, period. And they will never be good without that fervent spirit of competition driving them to become better than anyone else. Music, Rainbow Dash, is like anything else. You can be happy with what you have, or you can become the best through hard work and determination. The cellist sat on the edge of the bed while her listener scooted closer. Unfortunately, the world of music is rife with so-so performances doused with a gold coating by greedy ponies and bought by the ton by the general public. It would be like a politician making empty promises to better their standing with voters, or a stockbroker fudging numbers in his favor to make a sale, or an athlete who uses steroids to gain an advantage during the competition, even though it's totally bogus, added Rainbow Dash. Boy, do I hate that. Precisely, said Octavia with a smile. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, said a nurse, holding a pitcher of water. I don't mean to interrupt, but would you like me to exchange your pictures? Yeah, go for it, answered Rainbow, waving her off. The elderly nurse switched the pitchers and excused herself. So, it's you against the world, eh? She asked, stretching out far for her water. I can relate. Octavia obliged to serve the thirsty patient a glass of water and hoofed it to her. Not exactly. The Pegasus took a quick sip and raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Music to a musician, to me, like me, is like a drug. Some ponies get hooked, others don't. The ones that don't find it to be an unnecessary conglomeration of harmonized noises that is useless from a practical standpoint. But for the ones that do, it is life itself, and it is very dangerous to avoid the addiction that can unravel your life of pleasant curiosity and morph it into an endless struggle for that wonderful high that first song gave you. You look for it anywhere, in disorganized shelves, shady stores, in ponies you've never met before. You make deals that would be suspicious to anyone else with a sane mind. But to you, it is a passport to the land you once knew. And like many addictions, it wears your body down until you can't even rise from your own bed. The dealers breathe down your neck every second for their dues. And there you are, trying to work something out. It's fruitless, really, because they own everything that you have and everything that you are. They created you. Music has become not an experiment, but manufacturing. It has lost its savor and originality, and has been given a DNA easily replicated. It doesn't matter to them, though. The dealers will make their money, the public will get their tasteless music, and all that you're left with is an insatiable hunger that will never go away. Octavia paused for a moment to watch the ice cubes swirl endlessly in her plastic cup. The mare lying next to her hadn't picked up her own cup of refreshment for the entire talk, her eyes locked squarely on the musician seated next to her. You could say, she continued, that all of my battles for perfection, for fulfillment, for peace, are against me. I think I know where you're coming from now, said Rainbow, straightening up. It's kind of like what I go through with flight training. I know I can be the best. I can feel it. It's this amazing high that nothing else can bring to me. The chance of being the greatest flyer in the world is what keeps me pushing harder than the rest. Have you ever discovered something that was bigger than life? Even bigger than you? It feels like a flood of uncertainty rushing over you, leaving you no room to rest, no room to breathe, no room to live. The only thing that matters is to survive, and the only way to survive is to keep pushing. She looked at her repaired wing and ran a gentle hoof over it. And this is what happens when you push for that feeling too far. She sighed. Ah, I probably need help. The Pegasus felt a soft hoof perch on her shoulder and looking up, found a pair of purple eyes embracing her fallen face with empathy. No, you just need to reevaluate. I guess. But my friends probably think I'm a jerk now. In an effort to sound as non-cliché as possible, I will say that true friendship is unconditional. Rainbow chuckled. Yeah, I gotcha. The cellist looked up at the wall clock. 10:15. Well, I will leave you to rest. I need to go back down and ask where my friend is staying since I misunderstood the first time. What's your friend's name? I might know since she seems to be pretty close to where I'm staying. Octavia thought for a moment. Her name's Applebloom. Oh, Applejack's sister? She's in 315 down the hall. Octavia let out a laugh. Of course! Oh, 315, not 350. How did you know she was Applejack's sister? Applejack's a really close friend of mine. I see. Octavia walked towards the exit. Hey! A grin appeared on Rainbow Dash's face. You know, for a musician, you have really bad hearing. Octavia stared at the Pegasus's wrapped wing and sneered. Do you really want to go there? Rainbow chuckled a second time. Guess not. Thanks. The grey mare smiled and then walked out of the room in pursuit of room 315. Papa, am I going to die? What? Octavia blurted. The sweet, still voice froze the mare in her steps, but she didn't dare disturb the heart-wrenching scene unraveling to her right with her curiosity. She could feel the gazes from the family inside burning like a sweltering campfire. Her initial reaction was to look at her hoof as if searching for the time, but of course she didn't own a watch, making the scene even more unbearable. She walked away slowly from the open door and stopped right next to it out of sight, eager to hear the rest of this seemingly normal hospital conversation. Oh, what kind of stupid question is that? Asked a gruff bass voice. Of course you'll not die, you foolish filly. Honey, please. I'm scared, Mama. You have no reason to be scared, boomed the tough guy stallion. You should be ashamed for doing what you did. I, I'm sorry, Papa. Octavia mustered the courage to peek her purple eyes inside. She could see a small filly in a greenish gown and yellow hair tie huddled with a fair-looking mare with bright blue eyes. The filly's father, sporting a fiery red mane, took his time to answer, brushing off a few hairs on his wrinkled jacket. Sorry's not enough. You have put your entire career in jeopardy. This is going to require double skating training to make up for the time you lost. Firestorm, please, the filly's mother pleaded, brushing strands of loose blonde mane off her eyes. She's only a little girl. Don't make her worry so much over a petty thing as training. Shut up, mare! The sudden burst in volume shook even the grey pony incognito. You do not understand the magnitude of this incompetent filly's actions. She will never be able to compete like before. She's now useless in the heat of competition. She will never turn professional when she grows up. She will never have any sympathy from any judge in this whole world because she only has 3 legs. Papa, I said I was sorry. I don't need your apologies or your tears, he shouted, straightening the edges of his sleeves. You've really done it this time. You just couldn't follow a few simple rules, and now you've thrown away your entire future. You are worthless to me. Papa, wait! Don't go! Let him leave, Summer Breeze, said her mother, smoothing her crying daughter's bow-tied mane. He doesn't love you the way I do. My God, no! Why did you say that? Hey! The bellowing voice caught Octavia by surprise. What? His face crumpled just like his jacket. Were you spying on me? I was just... well, I mean... you see... The cellist began walking backwards, creating some much-needed space between her and her accuser. Then, like a sudden shock of electricity, an eruptive urge assailed her stomach, reaching to the bottom of her throat. She placed a hoof over her mouth and charged past the stallion, leaving him confused and cursing to the air. The lights in the restroom flickered without end. Scribbles of black and blue crawled all over the flimsy walls surrounding her. She gripped the crusted sides of the porcelain seat and held her head in impending suspension over the septic water. The cold, hard tile floor bruised her knees, but she waited patiently, tensely, for the incoming release. Another pony walked into the restroom, and Octavia could hear the rhythmic bumps of a bucket rolling along the uneven floor and the water mixed with a cleaning agent sloshing against its sides. She could see the pony park the bucket on the far side of the wall and begin mopping the floor with long strides, left and right, left and right. The pony got to the middle of the bathroom before retreating to dunk the mop into the bucket and continue where she left off. Octavia faced the toilet again and shut her eyes. She looked deep in prayer. Come on, out with it then. She rattled the seat and clenched her teeth. The digestive juices made their movements known, loud and clear, but nothing came out. The warm saliva continued to fill the pockets of her mouth. They were behaving like nothing more than a tease of real relief. She thought about gagging herself, but quickly scratched that idea. Oh, how embarrassing would it be to alert the janitor of my presence like that? Convinced that it was a losing battle, the cellist stood to her hooves and turned to leave the stall. Hey, you okay in there? She was asked to her face. Yes, thank you. Octavia tip-hoofed away from the curious janitor and picked up the pace noticeably out the door. The stabilized lights of the hallway blanketed the troubled mare with a sense of restored order. The feelings to vomit subsided little by little as she made her way across the hall in the direction of Apple Bloom's room. 3:15, not 50. 3:20, 3:19, 3:18. Laundry room. Oh, dear Celestia, that colt. 3:17, 3:16. I highly doubt that will happen, Fluttershy. Rainbow Dash is the element of loyalty, remember? She stopped at the door. Was that Twilight Sparkle? She took a quick peek. It is! Does she know Rainbow Dash? If she knows Rainbow Dash, she must know Apple Bloom and Applejack as well. She poked her head inside, remaining hidden from plain sight. Element of loyalty? Ponies can change, you know, Twilight. And after something as traumatic as having your wing nearly ripped off and making a week-long trip en hoof on your own, I can't imagine Rainbow ever being the same again. Fluttershy. Dear sweet Fluttershy. Admittedly, I agree with you there. But how can you be sure that Rainbow will change so dramatically? That voice. It rings a bell. Well, perhaps more like yanks a rope so fiercely it deafens the ears of every pony within 10 miles. Where did I hear her from? Wait a minute. The pony from outside the studio. The one who teleported all the way from Ponyville. Could it be her? She knows the Apple family too? And Twilight Sparkle and Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash? Is she another one of the elements of harmony? Octavia withheld her thoughts when she realized a heavy silence fell over room 315. She shuffled closer enough, just enough, to see every pony inside, while still keeping herself hidden. Twilight Sparkle, Fluttershy, the White Unicorn, Applejack and Pinkie Pie, Sweetie Belle. Oh! The cellist laid a hoof over her heart when she spotted the filly she had only heard heart-wrenching tales about. She was fast asleep, her chest rising and falling to the beeps of the monitor from which spread dozens of threatening-looking wires. A hospital is no place for a child, but at least she has much love and support in her family and friends. Love and support. Not like that other little filly. That poor filly. Love and support. Maybe Rainbow Dash doesn't want our support anymore. I disagree with you there, my dear Fluttershy. The cellist came out of her hiding place and stood in the doorway of room 315. And that, my dears, was Octavia Takes the Bus, Chapter 10, Saturday, Hospital Visits Part 2. So last week we saw what was happening from the Elements side of things, and this week from Octavia's side. She is getting gypped left, right, and center. And that reflux, oh boy, yeah, not a nice thing, not a nice thing at all. Poor thing still has confrontational issues. But we can tell that she's getting better, so that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. This story just keeps getting better and better. I'm surprised that more musicians weren't actually in the chat tonight for this, because that was some deep stuff. That was some really deep stuff when she was talking to Rainbow Dash. Well, hopefully you'll be listening on the YouTube later. For now, though, I'd like to play a couple of songs. Yes, 2 songs this time. Let's see. Oh, here we go. The first one is a new one from Living Tombstone. For me, this represents a return to form. Lately, I haven't really been a fan of his stuff as of late, but now he's done, well, Luna. He's remixed Eurobeat Brony's Luna, which by itself is amazing, but this, well, Tombstone brings it to another level and makes it his own. After that, we'll be hearing This Day Aria remix by Korw, featuring EileMonty and GatoPaint. I've only just seen it tonight, so I actually don't know what this is going to sound like. I hope it's beautiful. I'm fairly sure it'll be beautiful. So join us as we listen to Luna, the Living Tombstones remix, and after that, This Day Aria remix with Korw, EileMonty, and GatoPaint, right here on FanFiction Fridays. This is Oatstralia on Air Live.
Years I've waited here for you, waited every night, for I thought you were the answer to my life. Days turned into years and into centuries, patience had to fade. Don't you see that there is vengeance in my eyes? Won't you cry for me, as lonely as I'll ever be? I'm pushing back into the start. Is there any way to fix a broken heart?
says a girl can't really have it all.
And welcome back to FanFiction Fridays on Oatstralia On Air Live. This is Gold Microphone, and we are back from a slight musical interlude where we just heard the wonderful beats of the Living Tombstone remixing Eurobeat Brony's Luna into what I believe is a rock song. Really, it's pretty darn good. Not as good as his original stuff or his early stuff, but it's a return to form. He's getting better. Hopefully he gets much better as he goes along. And that remix, that This Day Aria remix by Korw, EileMonty, and GatoPaint, I have no words. I have no word. Listen, listen, listen. Everybody who's listening, listen carefully. We need to get EileMonty to Australia. We need her at the next PonyCon. As a musician, as a vocalist, brilliant. Though I'm not sure what the actual organizers will be saying about that. I'll bring it up with them next time I see them. Wow. Just wow. Wow. All I can say is wow. Alright, I think this is probably a good time to begin, well, telling you guys about the competition that's going on this week. So, there is a competition going on this week involving FanFiction Friday. What is this competition? Well, if you happen to be feeling very arty tonight, or this week in fact, then for your chance to win a game on Steam on your wish list up to a value of $30, provided by myself, all you need to do is sketch, draw, or, whatever you do, MS Paint if you want, a scene from one of the fanfictions read out tonight. Yep, any of these fanfictions, anything that I've read out tonight, any scene from any of those, so that's My Little Avengers, or Octavia Takes the Bus, or as we're about to read, something suggested by Leatherneck Brony last week and sent to my derpy mail, fantastic stuff. Draw that scene. Draw a scene from any of those, and you'll be in the running to win. How do you win? Well, I like to... Well, actually, I'll be honest, I actually don't have a judge for this. I'll probably throw it over at Feather, though. Or Koroshi, or... Actually, you know what? I really didn't think this through. Just send in your entries to dj-mar3@derpymail.org, and while sort through them, I will compare notes, I will talk with some artists about them, and whoever they believe is the best will be announced next week, and they get a game of their choice, and I will give them my Steam address so that I can go ahead and do that. So once again, all you have to do is listen out for the fanfictions that were read out this week in this show, draw a scene from any of those fanfictions, and send it to dj-mar3@derpymail.org. Good luck to you. Now, on to our final thing tonight, suggested by, of all ponies, Leatherneck Brony last week sent it to my derpy mail, which, by the way, you can go out ahead and use to suggest new stories for me to read. I would love that, actually. I would really love that. Go right ahead and do that during the show, after the show, whatever you like. I've just copy-pasted the story into the chat, and it is called Doing the Nasty. I was assured that this was a safe fanfiction, but I'm not too sure. I trust you though, Leatherneck, so don't let me down. This here is a blind reading, so I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So, here we go with Doing the Nasty by Present Perfect. Cruel mirth bubbled up Nightmare Moon's throat like oil in a derrick as she surveyed Equestria, her Equestria, from the highest balcony of Canterlot Castle. To the south, a ruin of smouldering embers marked where the wrecked hamlet of Ponyville long the bane of her existence, once lay. Further east, the fires of Hoofington, last bastion of all who had dared stand against her, still blazed, their bright, flickering pinpricks an insult to her glorious night. Soon they too would be extinguished, and the darkness, cold, peaceful, tame, would reign supreme. She indulged in triumphant laughter, laying aside all notions of villainous cliché. Lightning streaked overhead as she reared back on her hind legs and allowed all the suffering and humiliation that she had borne at her sister's hoof to flow outward. It had been a millennium, and then some, of pain and toil, but it had all been worth it. Finally, she was enjoying herself. Having a good time, are we, my little rainbow of darkness? The melodious and far too amused voice shut her up. Her inky cheeks rouged in embarrassment at having been caught in the act of rejoicing. She cleared her throat. Ahem! Merely revelling in the victory which lies beneath my hooves, my dear. The wastelands are lovely tonight, don't you think? Comporting herself, she turned around to view the Draconicus. He sat mid-air, observing her with a smirk on his mismatched features. His head rested on an upturned eagle arm, supported by an invisible ledge to one side. He turned his attention to his lion paw, waggling its fingers as he pondered it, before moving his gaze back to her. The latest reports out of Manhattan say that the elements have been crushed. The elements have crushed the final rebellion strongholds. At long last, our coup is complete. His lips parted into a thin smile. Excellent. She spread her wings and closed her eyes, savoring a long breath of the cool night air. That crispness she tasted, it must have been freedom. I haven't felt so utterly fantastic in centuries. And I couldn't have done it without you, my delicious dragon roll. Oh, really? We're having one of these? Okay. Discord scrunched his face up joyfully, clenching fists to cheeks as he cooed at her. Oh, my Lady Nightmare Moon, you are too kind. My part was but a small one. It was, after all, your plan which has brought about such thorough success this evening. She allowed herself to smile at the praise and his modesty. Discord's primary usefulness had lain in his ability to corrupt the elements of harmony, bending their bearers to their will, to her will. With her training, they had formed into an unstoppable shock troop. Together, the 6 ponies had single-hoofedly destroyed more than 2/3 of the mobilized resistance. That very resistance had been shoddily organized and spread thin across the city-states of Equestria, did not belie the power of the elements of discord, the name an indulgence which she weathered good-naturedly. They were his creation after all, as a truly terrifying conquering force. My good Discord, do not sell yourself short. We have gained victory this night that neither of us had been able to attain on our own. He grinned at her and bowed with a flourish. Discord was an odd duck, to say the least. Working with him had been far easier than she could have hoped. Villainous types such as they tended to clash after extended partnerships, but he was very careful never to get under her skin. He had let her make the big decisions, and had supported her at nearly every turn, always phrasing his objections in the most delicate manner possible whenever he felt she was being rash. His counsel had proved irreplaceable, and he knew how to stay on her good side, despite her lingering worry that he was far and away the stronger of them. The pet names were something he had started as well, and she had found them too amusing to ignore. The banter kept their professional relationship fresh and mentally stimulating. How many things could a being such as he be compared to, after all? She let her eyes rove his form, taking in the anatomical discrepancies that were the entirety of his countenance. Studying him at such a close range, she found herself amazed that he was able to function as a living entity. his various his various parts joined together in an entirely impossible fashion, never accounting for discrepancies in size and ignoring wholesale all hint of evolution. Of course, she couldn't even be certain that what she saw was his true form, and indeed, she was convinced that it wasn't. He raised a single eyebrow. Something on your mind, my dark nebula? Her lips trembled. I was just considering. She drew in a breath. We ought to celebrate our achievement, don't you think? He rubbed his hands together. Ooh! And what did you have in mind? I'll have you know I make killer martois. Mate. Mate? I think that's French. I actually don't know much, if any, French. Sorry. This is a blind reading. A smile worked its way out of her. I was thinking of more of a consummation to mark the beginning of our new reign. She cleared her throat. Heat rose to her face. Could she truly be contemplating this? He wasn't anything to look at that much was certain, but then laying every solid piece of flank in the palace had always been her sister's modus operandi. Certainly a pony as refined and dignified as she was capable of looking beyond the purely superficial to the personality of the creature beneath, was she not? His eyes darkened, and for a moment her heart fluttered in trepidation. Our reign? His lip curled. I do believe you mean your reign, my licorice gumdrop. I had my fill of ruling millennia ago. A porcelain ewer popped into existence in front of him, and from it flowed a stream of water. He wrung his hands together in the stream. My goal was simply to get revenge on your sister and ensure my freedom. You are welcome to have all the mindless paperwork and endless council meetings your heart desires. The ewer vanished, and he flicked his hands dry, his head lifted haughtily all the while. I never knew you felt that way, Cordy. Oh, but I do! He vanished, appearing so near beside her that their wings tangled. He drew his snout close to hers. Now, what sort of consummation was this that you had in mind, exactly? She pawed at the ground, suddenly unable to meet his gaze. Oh, we really are going here, aren't we? Well, I... I was thinking... What I mean is... That is, if you're interested... There was a pause, and then she swore she could hear a creak as his eyebrows lifted skyward. Oh ho! Do my ears deceive me? The redoubtable Nightmare Moon has a crush on me? For a moment she feared he was mocking her, but when she looked up, his face was a picture not of mirth, but of pure delight. Dearest Nightmare, why didn't you just say so? He spread his arms and leapt into the air. I would be honored to consummate, as you say, our triumph. He manifested a black cravat and a bottle of wine, which he set between two long-stemmed glasses atop a small table which had just as suddenly emerged from nothingness. Something dark and feathery quivered within her breast. Leatherneck, you said this was safe. This is starting to get not safe. Oh, Discord. Oh, brother. Do you need me to read this for you? No, no, I'm quite fine, Pegasus. How about me? No, I don't think we need you either. Not for the moment. Just sit there for a while, okay? This is embarrassing. I can see that. Look at you. You're all red in the face. Shut up. She leaned forward, closing her eyes. Her lips pursed in anticipation. She hung there for a heartbeat before a tremendous electric shock struck the tip of her nose. Her body twitched violently and she was flung backward through the air. She yelped as she landed in a most undignified manner some lengths behind where she had stood, on her stomach and with both wings and all four legs splayed outwards. Discord sucked in a tremulous breath, eyes closed, lion hand still extended with one finger outstretched. His mouth turned upwards in utter bliss. Was it good for you? What in the moonless night was that? She hissed through clenched teeth, her voice quivering with rage as she struggled to regain both her footing and some of her thoroughly trampled self-esteem. He placed a hand to his chest, his tone offended. What was what? I thought you wanted to bear my foal. He pouted. Oh, Nightmare Moon, you wound me. Bear your what? She looked down at herself, eyes wide, and realized that, yes, there was definitely something odd about her now. Fuzziness was the only word she could use to describe the sensation, a prevailing warmth that was spreading gradually throughout her entire body. What is going on? What is going on? Discord put a finger to his jutting lower lip. Did I do something wrong? She snarled. I was talking about physical gratification, you twit. A roll in the hay, knocking hooves, a little of the old rumpy-pumpy, not a special effect. What did you do to me? Her surprised adversary seemed taken aback, his features falling in chastisement. Oh, my apologies, darling. It seems I took your advances in entirely the wrong fashion. He looped about in mid-air, landing on his back and reclining. His lip curled in a sneer. But such acts as you had in mind are so unseemly. He polished his eagle claw on his chest, examining it at arm's length as he spoke. Savage, mindless animals do that sort of thing. What you just experienced is how my kind do it, as they say. Or they would if I weren't the only one. He suddenly clasped his hands together, his features transforming into a wistful grin. Oh, but just think of it! I'm going to be a daddy! He squealed, holding his cheeks. I never realized until now just how much I wanted to have an offspring, and throwing a few dark alicorn parts into the mix will certainly improve on a form that can already be described only as perfection. He sighed and turned over onto his front, head perched on his hands. Little images began to dance in front of his face, depicting dark alicorn foals with assorted bits of dragon and goat emerging from their bodies. As she watched the images prance about his head, her stomach churned. Perhaps it was the aforementioned offspring churning within her, already taking hold of her body and making her its own. Oh, take it back, she snapped. Whatever you did, surely you can undo it. Panic rose into her voice. She found the air to be in short supply. Oh, perish the thought! Discord raised a hand to his forehead. Create a life only to destroy it mere moments later? Really, Nightmare Moon, when they said you were a monster, I had thought it an exaggeration. Tisk tisked, shaking his head. Oh, that's it! With a cry of rage, she leapt at him, surprised when she managed to knock him from his non-existent perch before he teleported away. You did this to me, you bastard! Oh, temper, temper, he said flatly, waving a finger at her. You must think of your condition. You really ought to put the safety of the child first, you know. She aimed a bolt of lightning at him from her horn, but succeeded only in destroying a statue of her likeness, and he blinked out of the line of fire. More statues were rent to dust and gravel as she unleashed lightning again and again, despite the increasing ease with which he was able to dodge them. Before long she began panting. By this time he was wearing a sweatband, leg warmers, and headphones, and simply jogging along ahead of her attacks, a few feet off the ground. Perhaps I was hasty in my evaluation of your maternal instincts, he said, more to himself than her. A scroll and quill appeared in front of him, and he made a large X through an item on the list. A shame, really. But then, we all have our little flaws. The scroll disappeared with a puff of smoke, and he grinned at her. A little known fact. Mine is macrame. Her knees gave out, and she landed hard on her rump. This can't be happening. Tears filled her eyes as she stared in disbelief at the marble-tiled balcony floor. I can't be. She lifted her head, gazing past Discord to the moon, where the likeness of her sister, imprisoned there for all eternity, gazed down upon Equestria. She was certain it was grinning at her. "This is all your fault!" she cried, shaking her hoof at the satellite. "You planned this somehow! You knew this would happen! You can stop him! You did it before!" Discord cleared his throat. "I believe this is my cue to exit. Until you're in better spirits, my black hole." "Until you're in better spirits, my black hole." He bowed, winking out of sight and leaving her with only her rage and his unborn child for companions. "Damn you, Celestia!" she shouted, sinking to the floor and covering her face with both forehoofs. "Damn you! Damn you!" She wailed and pounded the floor with her hoof, her voice cracking and coming out as little more than a whisper. "Help me, sister, please." As the tears streamed freely from her eyes, she could swear she heard Celestia's laughter, echoing forever through her cold, peaceful, perfect night. "Damn you, Celestia! Wah!" Luna awoke to the sound of her own voice, in a tangle of sheets on the floor. While the quilt she had received as a gift from Twilight Sparkle and her friends in Ponyville remained neatly arranged atop her bed, the rest of her blankets had somehow slipped out from beneath it, entombing her. "What sort of a dream was that?" she asked them as she struggled to disengage her wings from the pile. She noted with dismay that one blanket had been neatly pierced by her horn. It was the second time that month that set of sheets had been ruined in that fashion, though the last time had not involved quite so bizarre a dream. As she pondered the visions she had just experienced, she had a terrible thought. Swallowing, disentangling the sheet from her back hooves, she closed her eyes and focused her thoughts to a place deep within the recesses of her being, one that she did not look to without good cause. "Are you there?" A pause. Then, "Of course I'm here." That was odd. Though the dark voice still echoed as it always had through the unfathomable reaches of her soul, it sounded petulant, like a filly scolded for some misdeed, who had decided she wouldn't be speaking with her parents anymore. "What do you want? Can you tell me what that dream meant? Is this what our relationship has become? Am I no more than an armchair therapist to interpret your dreams?" The voice huffed. "Anyway, how should I know? It was your subconscious that created it." "But you saw it, didn't you?" "Yes." There was a shudder. "You want to know what it means? It means you're sick in the head. I can't believe I had to get stuck in here with a mare as perverse as you." "As me? But what—" "You know exactly what. Using images like that to keep me under control. It's vile, despicable even. Couldn't you at least have the decency to conjure up a torture chamber? Chain me over a lake of fire? What about an anthill and some honey? Anything would be preferable to that." "I'm sorry." "I'm sure you are, Princess. Don't bother me with inanities again." The presence went still, and she knew there would be no more speaking to it for the time being. Luna stared at her bed, eyes wide. Had she just apologized to the nightmare? And for having a nightmare of her own, no less? The evening, or afternoon rather, judging by the angle of the sun, was getting off to an unspeakably odd beginning, to put it lightly. She stretched, having fully disembarked from the pile of blankets and sheets at long last, and made her way to the eastern window of the tower in which her room was located. Celestia had given her the freedom to stay in any room in the castle, and she had picked this one for its elevation and view. The angle was perfect for stargazing, and as she was now awake, earlier than usual, the sun gave her an opportunity to look out over the enormous hedge maze in the garden and the various statuaries surrounding it. It was a most pleasing tableau from this height. Below, a mulberry mare led a group of half a dozen foals through those very statues, stopping to gesture at each in turn. Luna smiled. It was good to see ponies out, enjoying Canterlot and all, the wonderful sights it had to offer. She still felt like a sightseer herself, most days. Her smile grew wider as three fillies began arguing noisily. She could almost hear their quarrel from the tower, and the sight appealed to her mischievous side. Ah, youth. That drew her thoughts back to the dream, and the image that haunted her. Pregnancy, and by such an odd creature, too. She shook her head. At least with her divinity, there was one thing she didn't have to worry about ever happening accidentally. The mind was a truly marvelous place, for all the wonders it could conjure. She drew in a deep breath and closed her eyes. Ah, I suppose I'm awake then. Perhaps I'll write a letter to Twilight Sparkle. She always seems to have an insight into things dealing with the nightmare. And then perhaps I'll go down to the garden and see if those fillies have resolved their tiff. Her stomach grumbled. Ah, but breakfast first, or I suppose it would be lunch by now. Yes, the garden can wait. And the Princess of the Moon turned toward her chamber door, resolving to do all of those things once she had eaten. Well, that there was Doing the Nasty by Present Perfect, available on, well, Google Docs and recommended to us by, well, Leatherneck Brony. You, sir, are I don't even know what to call you for this one, because that was certainly unexpected. Definitely unexpected. Ah, ah. Well, anyway, with that wrapped up and that in mind, I think we'll close off early for tonight. 10:30 seems like a good time. Very well then. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. For those of you on YouTube, thank you for tuning in as well. Remember to check out the details of the competition down in the description below. Also, if you like the music, their links will be down there too. From all of us at Oatstralia On Air and from FanFiction Fridays, thank you very much for being here and listening in. Thank you, and good night.